Hello everyone and welcome back to A Couple Books. This is Couple as per usual. It's been a long time, so long time no see everybody. But before we get into today's video, which is a birthday / June book haul, we are going to discuss the winners of the book raffle that I kind of left you guys on a cliffhanger with. So with that being stated, the names have been drawn by the gods and it has been decided that Megan and Leanne's library will be receiving 2 free books from me. Personal recommendation books. So please, if you guys wouldn't mind, Megan and Leanne's library, going and emailing me at acouplebooks@gmail.com and let's start a conversation so we can get you both your free books. Nonetheless, thank you guys so much for the support. It's been a little bit of a crazy time, hence why we had to take a break from filming, but we are back and we are starting with a book haul because my birthday just happened and my buying obsession also continued, so therefore we have some books to go through. So with that all being stated and Nova's presence now being noted, let us get started on today's video. So the first book that I have for you guys today is Gamers by Cambry Varner. This book I already reviewed. It's a lit RPG book, but I didn't have a physical copy. I just got a physical copy. The author very kindly sent me the digital file, I think is the correct English verbiage for this, for free to review a few months ago, but I really enjoyed it. It was one of my top 5 favorite fantasy books, lit RPG, sci-fi fantasy books of last year. So I was able to get the physical copy and I love it. It's obviously a gorgeous book, but for those who are unaware and did not catch my review on it, basically it's about 2 girls, sisters, who play video games quite intensely, and one of the sisters is more into MMORPGs, massive multiplayer online role-playing games, and the other sister is much more into like the board game kind of clique of the board game world. Does that make sense? I don't know. Maybe we're coming out to a conspiracy. We're unsure. But nonetheless, they end up getting, one of the sisters ends up convincing the other to kind of join her on this MMORPG, and so they both sign on and they both create characters and they both get into the game. Once they get into the game though, they realize that they are now trapped in this game. It's kind of Sword Art Online, if you guys are familiar with that great, fantastic anime. But I really loved it. It's really fantastic. The cliffhanger of this is really juicy, and I cannot wait to get into the next book, which is coming out hopefully later this year. I'm not 100% sure. But there we go. The next book I have for you guys is The Bone Maker by Sarah Beth Durst. For those who are unaware, Sarah Beth Durst is the writer of the Queen's Orenthia series, which I really loved the first book. Was not so obsessed with the rest of the series as a whole. Right, puppies? It's okay! But The Bone Makers is a new fantasy book set in a new world entirely by Sarah Beth Durst. And this one basically is really interesting. It is basically these 5 heroes went out and they stopped this evil black necromancer or some bad magician out there, and one of them died in the quest to stop the end of the world or stop the evilness. And now a few years in the future, here we are after the end of the typical fantasy story, and now we're dealing with the consequences of these heroes who went out and sacrificed everything, including one of their own, to defeat the evil. And now we enter this world where these heroes have aged, and the leader of the heroes band was the wife of the person who had died, or the girlfriend. Yeah, was the wife of the dead hero, and she's doing everything in her power to resurrect him using dark magic. And now enter into where the story starts. I have no clue what happens past that, but I love the whole idea of past the end of a story, and I'm really interested to see what happened to these characters, see the toll that it took on them to be the heroes of the story. Next, we got a short story collection by John Lanchester. Reality and Other Stories is the name of the book. I have already read it, so wait for a review. But this one I got, it's basically a collection of, I think 7 or 8 or something like that, short stories, and they all revolve around reality and kind of its turmoil on society and its effect on society. It's kind of got a Black Mirror vibe to it, which is why I picked it up, but I'll be getting more into it in a review for you guys later on. Next, we've got a book that I bought pretty much purely for the cover, and that is going to be The Black Tongue Thief by Christopher Buhlman. There you go. Oh my god, look at this cover. It's absolutely fab in every way. But this book is basically about a thief who has been trained by the Thieves Guild to gain a master's degree in thievery, and now he's in debt to the university. Sorry, I don't mean university, I mean Thieves Guild. And though, aren't they one and the same? Anyways, that's a whole other conversation. But he's in debt to the Thieves Guild for his education, so he goes out to try and make this money by robbing somebody. Highway robbery. It was a robbery on the highway, but it's like, of course, in a medieval fantasy Goblin War era type of world, so there's no highways, but you get what I'm saying. And he goes out to rob this person, and it doesn't go so well. This person ends up being a knight, and they kind of get their fates intertwined, and now he's kind of pulled into this epic quest of goblin wars and death and sorcery and all the good stuff that happens in fantasy worlds. I'm really excited for this. I like the idea of having a rogue thief-like main character, so super stoked for this one. Next, we got a horror book, The Lost Village by Camilla Sten, and this was translated by Alexandra Fleming. This is a translated works, obviously translated, and I really like translated works because I feel like if it was so good in that language, it coming over to this language that I can read, English, is probably makes it even better. It's like a recommendation on its own, but that's not the point. The point is that this is a horror book that is pretty much Blair Witch Project. That's what I've been told, that is what I've heard, and that is what I've gone from the little bit I've read of it. It is Blair Witch Project in book form. So basically this documentary crew has genetic, familial, one of those fancy words, ties to this lost village. And this village was abandoned like 60 years ago or something like that, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, some time ago it was abandoned. And basically how it was abandoned was kind of like Roanoke. Basically everyone in the entire village just disappeared overnight. The police show up and they found a dead body in the middle of the town square, and all the other residents were gone. But it wasn't just like they were gone. It was like they were gone. Like teacups were still out, food was still cooking on the stove, but no one was in the town anymore. And we don't really know what happened to them. Now, here we are in present day, and a granddaughter of one of the residents of the village, of the town, is trying to figure out what exactly happened. So she gets a documentary film crew together, and they go out and figure what happens while documenting the entire journey. Fourth to last, we have Rabbits by Terry Miles, another book I bought purely because of the cover. This one is based off the podcast Rabbits, which I have not listened to, but it's got good ratings, so there you go, do with that what you will. But this one all revolves around this secret underground, supposedly, maybe, possibly fatal game that goes down. And basically this underground game is super impossible to get into. You can't really get into it. You have to basically find your way into it. And if you do get into it, then basically it might or might not be a recruiting tool for CIA, NSA. It's really unclear what the rewards are of winning the game, if you can even find the game. But nonetheless, there is a game, and there is a surprise at the end, and we're unsure exactly how it all connects. It's got some conspiracy vibes to it. This whole underground game mechanic is a really interesting thing to me. There's supposedly some reality bending aspect to it. I don't really know much more than you guys at this point, but look at that cover. Like, how can you not like that rabbit? Oh, it's so cute. Okay. Next, we have Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. This is the second book in the Six of Crows duology. I read the first book, which was called Six of Crows, so long ago, and I kind of just never picked up the second book. Not because it was bad, I just never got around to picking it up. But then I watched the Shadow of Bone series on Netflix, which is based off of the Shadow of Bones trilogy by Leigh Bardugo, which is set in the same universe. And some of the characters in that TV show are the characters in this series. So I really wanted to get back into it. I wanted to figure out what actually happened at the end of it, so I'll be rereading 1 and 2 of the Six of Crows duology, and really excited to pick up Crooked Kingdom. Alright, next we've got The Counselor by E.J. Beaton. This is a political thriller in a fantasy world. Basically, the queen has been murdered or died or something along those lines. Typical fantasy start, but what's different is that instead of some mysterious heir showing up, we have the counselor. The queen's best friend and loyal scholar of the kingdom is basically tasked with taking on the role of the counselor, and this person, this scholar, is going to have to go out and basically decide who's going to be the next queen, while there's all this backstabbing and betrayal going on in the actual kingdom and inside the court. So I like a good political thriller. I like a good political mystery. I like this whole vibe that's going on here. Also, it's a really interesting perspective and a nice fresh take on it. So I'm excited to pick up this one as well. Okay guys, the last book I have for you guys in this haul is A Master of Jinn by P. Djèlí Clark. By author Clark. I cannot pronounce his first name, I'm so sorry. But this author is most famous for his book Ring Shout, which came out a little bit ago and it made big moves. But this is his steampunk murder fantasy book, and I'm really stoked for it. Basically, we're set in like alternate Cairo in like the 1900s, and in an alternate Cairo, basically there's this department of Ministry of Magic type thing where it's like supernatural stuff, and basically our character Agent Fatma is sorry for mispronunciations, is tasked with uncovering who was the murderer in this massive massacre of this brotherhood who worshipped, or at least reveled in, the mysteries of the unknown, since they basically followed this leader who was the one who basically uncovered the mysteries of the supernatural and along those such lines. But the brotherhood that basically revels this guy was murdered, and it was pretty grisly from what I'm assuming, and basically Agent Fatma is basically tasked with figuring out who was the murderer. I hear that this has got some steampunk elements to it, it's got murder mystery elements to it, it's in a fantasy world. There's really not much that can go wrong so far from what I'm hearing. So this is another book I'm super stoked for. And those are pretty much all the books that I physically gathered for either my June haul or my birthday. So super excited to start reading each and every single one of them. Some of them I've already started, and I cannot wait to share with you guys the results of those reads. But I think that's all for today, guys. So do not forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below. And I'm so excited to hear from the 2 winners of the book raffle. Please be sure to email me once again at acouplebooks@gmail.com. But other than that, I think that's all for today. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye now.